All right.
Hey guys, so thanks for coming on. Thanks to everyone out there for joining us on this morning, which it's a shitty morning in America, everyone. Especially if you are a woman, especially if you're a mom, especially if you're someone who loves a woman or a mom. And so Beverly, Rana, Julie, Lindsay, Janice, all from the Red, Wine, and Blue squad here. When we're hurting, we gather with our people, we feel our feels, and then we start getting shit done when something's pretty shitty. So we're going to talk about all of that. I just wanted to start by, if anyone hasn't seen the news, all of you have. But we got the news that this is a done deal. The Supreme Court's already voted. We're just all sitting around waiting for them to go public with the decision. But Roe v. Wade is done for. A draft majority opinion written by Justice Alito was leaked last night. So we not only know that a majority of the court has voted to overturn Roe v. Wade, we have the opinion. And it is, Alito strongly states that Roe is done. So this is where we are. And I think some of us have been anticipating this, but it is a whole lot different to feel the reality. I know I feel it in my body today. So you guys, let's talk about where you were when you heard the news, how you're processing it, how that's going, because I think a lot of people are having those feelings today. I'll start with me. I was flying home from a family wedding trip to California over the weekend. I was flying back here to Ohio. The Wi-Fi worked on the plane. Yay. That meant that the news hit immediately as I was getting some work done on the plane. And I will say I've been a realist about this. I was very much expecting this. I was expecting this exact news to come next month, but it feels entirely different in a visceral way to actually see this out there as a reality. It makes me feel more urgency as someone who wants to influence the hearts and minds of others in terms of how we vote in this election, but it influences me at a deep, deep level as a woman to feel like I live in a country that I've never lived in before. I've only read about this reality throughout history and how it's existed in other places and how women are completely not valued as full human beings. Like, what? In America? It feels contrary to everything I know about this country and the freedoms that we're supposed to have, and also the safety that I am meant to provide for the children in my community. I'm a boy mom. It makes me feel more urgency too to raise good men. Okay, someone else start talking before I cry.
I'll jump in. I was actually putting my 4-year-old daughter to bed when I got the news. And she has trouble going to sleep and fights bedtime like 4-year-olds do. But suddenly I was just very focused on this idea of she's only 4 years old and she doesn't know any of this yet, but her rights, like she's going to grow up in a world different than the one I grew up in. She's going to have less rights than I had when I was coming of age, when I was a teenager. It just hurts. Like you said, we intellectually knew this was coming, but I feel it just deep inside. I think like most of you, I didn't sleep well. It was the first thing I thought of when I woke up this morning and just trying to work through all those emotions.
Yeah, 100%. Lindsay. So, yeah, no, Julie, I'm sort of curious to hear, you and Rana have older kids.
Yeah, so that was my day yesterday. I actually was talking to someone about this, about how we, the concern that it's coming and a lot of people didn't know it. And so I think it just hit like a ton of bricks, which is true because my phone was blowing up last night with different friend circles who had different levels of awareness and the shock that everybody felt. But I literally picked up my daughter from college yesterday. So I have a daughter in college and a daughter in high school and a son in college. And I just thought, I can't believe, I'm picking up my daughter from college. She finished her freshman year. And like you just said, Lindsay, my daughters are going to have less rights than I did at their age. And she's in college, which I'm hoping she's having a great time, but it's also a scary time because sexual assaults happen on campus. And I think about that and that that is now something that not only does she have to worry about that, but then she has to worry about what are the consequences, especially in Ohio where we live, where they're going to pass a trigger law and this will be illegal in Ohio, without a doubt. Which, she would have to go through. And I'm running these things through my mind. And then I'm thinking to myself, well, but I'm privileged. Like, something happened to her, I can fly to Mexico or Europe or a state, you know what I mean? But I can't think of all the people who cannot possibly do that. And I actually had a talk with my son last night because he and his friend are here for the summer too. And I was like, you know what? This affects women and it's an assault on women. But honestly, you guys have no control either. If you would come in a situation now where, you're with a woman who gets pregnant, you're a dad. I'm like, you have no control, that there's no choice in that matter for anybody in this situation. And yeah, it was just a horrifying evening. And the reality, like you said, Katie, the reality that this was actually happening was knowing it intellectually and then seeing it on your TV and seeing the documents was just a whole different level. And then talking to my kids about it.
Totally. Janice, how about you? Were you expecting it?
Yeah, because the certain folks on the other side are just assholes. I hope I can just speak frankly on this.
I mean, don't we always?
Yeah. So I was getting ready for bed and I kept hearing Slack blowing up. And I'm like, okay, what are they talking about? So I got on Slack and I saw what you guys were talking about. And I'm going to be very honest with you guys. As someone who went through the back alley abortion at 15 and literally almost died at home with my mother tending to me because my mother took me. That's some scary shit. It's some scary shit. Mm-hmm. And as someone who, I don't necessarily, want to think, hey, everybody should be having an abortion, but I do not appreciate a bunch of men trying to decide what us women should do with our bodies. So I am very angry. I'm pissed. I've tried to analyze both rationales. Okay, why is this such an issue for people? I've looked at it many different ways. And I'm ready to call up some Republican man to sit down over coffee and just talk. Like, tell me, what is it that I'm missing? Because I don't understand why you all are just so determined to control us women's bodies. I don't get it. But I'm very angry. I am very angry. I'm holding back, believe it or not.
No, I can feel it.
Yeah.
How about you?
So when I started hearing this last night, it really just made me think of a lot of different people who I know who have had abortions. And one story that is very important to me was my mother, who got pregnant in 1964 after having a healthy pregnancy, had my sister, Andrea, in 1963, and she unfortunately contracted rubella. And at the time, there was not a lot of information that you could gather about what a pregnancy would look like. It was very different than what we experience today with ultrasounds and blood tests and all kinds of scans to be able to figure out what is going to happen for that potential baby. And so she, knew that the chances were that if she didn't have a stillbirth or a miscarriage, that there could be some pretty dire medical consequences for whatever baby she and my father would be bringing into the world. And she made the decision that she did not want to go through with having that pregnancy. And at that time, she needed to go before a hospital board of all white male doctors and ask to have a medically necessary abortion. And my father was not permitted to stand by her side, and she had to do that on her own. And that remains to me one of the strongest things I think my mother probably ever had to do. And it was the right decision for our family in that moment. And this was a much wanted baby. And then, she, lived with that for her life. I lost a baby after birth. 8 weeks old who had devastating medical issues upon birth that we were not aware of. And as I processed that through a support group, my mother came with me and sat next to me, because back then in 1964, she was not permitted to speak about this. She was not permitted to speak about the abortion that she had and that the baby that she lost. She was not permitted to grieve. And I fear that we are headed back there, where we are not in control of our own bodies and we are not in control of our own emotions and so much more.
So much more. Rana, thank you for sharing that, your story, and your mom's, and Janice, thank you too. Bev.
Well, rage, lots and lots of rage, and mainly rage at the fact that this is going to cause more abortions. I mean, it's so hypocritical for what folks are trying to achieve, because we know when women have safe and easy access to reproductive health care, there are fewer abortions. It's fact. So it's hard for me to digest the hypocrisy of what's happening in this moment, because it's so blatantly political, and really just trying to decipher what's next. I mean, I have a sick kid at home today, not feeling great, fell asleep early last night, woke up around midnight, and one of my group chats with the Suburban Women Problem host was, had a lot of, I'd missed notifications, and I was just really confused, like, what's going on, what's happening? I get on Twitter, and it was like, I think I tweeted this, but I fell asleep and then woke up in 1954. It was completely foreign. And it's also, I guess I'm also just feeling a lot of anger towards apathy. Like, so many women have been here and are working to get the word out and talk to their friends. And it's just never been more important for folks to connect with the women in their network, because we have to kill apathy. Like, we absolutely have to, if we're going to have any hope of maintaining rights, getting rights back, voting the bastards out, that let this happen.
Yeah. So, I think that, Bev, I take your point so strongly. It's like, we actually do know how to reduce the number of abortions that there are in America. It's comprehensive sex education and access to birth control. Like, that's actually how you do it. It's not by making abortion illegal. And because women are still going to get abortions, they're just not going to be safe. And so it's going to mean dangerous abortions. It's going to mean women dying, and so this is purely political, and we all pay the price as women and how we're valued, in this country. What message does it send, to your daughters?
I was going to say, I think the scary thing too with all of this, and what Bev just said, was around the apathy. And I think what I tweeted was that I was so mad because after the 2016 election, so many of us were sounding the alarm about potential what could happen here. And people, of course, talking about Handmaid's Tale type stuff. And there were so many people who were like, you're overreacting.
Right.
And then, so the apathy behind that and not recognizing where we were moving. And I think also people should really read up and understand that what this case won't just maybe impact abortion rights. I mean, this could literally overturn privacy rights and a whole bunch of cases, anywhere from birth control to marriage equality to, I'm in an interracial marriage. There's been discussion around that should be a state's decision. I don't trust the politicians in Ohio to do any of that and control my family. So this has much broader implications than just abortion rights.
Okay, so let's talk about fighting that apathy, though, and what we can do. Is that where you're going, Bev?
Absolutely.
Always a woman of action. Okay, so first of all, I think that sometimes we come into this and we think like, well, Congress needs to act, let's pass something, and that legislation is there. The House has actually passed legislation that would codify Roe, that would and the House has passed that. The Senate, we just don't have the votes. We don't have the votes, and all the other solutions people have talked about, expanding the number of seats on the Supreme Court. We don't have the votes to do that. It doesn't mean we don't keep pushing. But the number one way that we achieve these things is that we change the people who are in office. We win more elections. We elect people who share our values, who are actually willing to represent the majority of Americans. 70% of Americans oppose overturning Roe v. Wade. Those numbers are higher when you just look at women, when you just look at suburban women. And so we need to be willing to do more than vote in this election. We need to be willing to use all of our voice, all of our power, all of our network. Yeah, Bev's putting up just our website, redwine.blue. We are going to be raining down the ways to get involved in the coming days. We are going to be offering trainings. We are going to be offering ways to support you in local organizing in your communities. We're going to be training people on the most effective form of voter outreach that you can do to tap into your network between now and November. We are going to be giving you all kinds of ways to use your time, your resources, to step up to the plate, because we know what we're hearing is that people want to do more than vote. And if we do that collectively as a sisterhood, that is powerful. All the resistance movements, if you look at globally at our world throughout history of the last hundreds of years, those that have women on the front lines, those that are women led, are the most successful. It's just a fact. It's empirically proven. Okay. The power for this is truly in our hands. And I also want to say that there has been a doomsday scenario about the 2022 elections that, it's just going to get worse. We're going to elect even more people who support policies like this. But no one actually believed, less than 20% of Americans actually believed that this was going to happen, that Roe was going to be overturned. Now we know that it is. This is going to have an impact on how people feel about this election, on the urgency they feel around it, how they're going to vote. I mean, I know that we're already seeing that, in terms of all of our networks lighting up, our Facebook groups lighting up. And so we are going to be providing a lot of opportunities. Please sign up to be involved with us. This is not like a just, click on an online petition and feel good about it. This is about taking meaningful action that will make the difference in these elections, because this is going to be going straight to the states. What happens in our state legislatures really matters. I'm glad I actually live in Ohio today. Our primary is today. I will be voting. I was going to go on my own, but now I think I'm going to go once I pick my son up from school, because he needs to know and feel the meaning of this with me too. I am glad that I get to do that. I get to vote for a woman to be the nominee from Ohio, first in history for governor, who has a perfect record on this issue of advocating for the rights of women, and is going to stand up every single time, I have no doubt, to this idea of government mandated pregnancy. Because that's what they're saying. The party that claims to be of small government or no government at all. Right. One role that the government should have is to mandate that we are to carry a pregnancy to term, even if it was even if it was caused by rape.
And what does that look like, right? Like, what does a government mandated pregnancy look like? Because if it's something like, and I'm just kind of throwing that out there because I'm genuinely curious. Like, if you are being forced, are there certain things along the way? Is there mandatory, I don't know, DNA testing, mandatory child support? Like, I saw something about this too. If it's, this is not only going to hurt women who want to terminate a pregnancy, it's going to hurt women who can't, because then, with violent men who might then be committed to them in some way. It's very terrifying if we're creating different kinds of legal bonds, and it's just making women more and more vulnerable.
And who goes to jail also, for these women who, is it the woman? Is it her doctor? Is it both? Is it you because you gave her a ride across state lines to help your friend?
Is there a tip line where people report you for doing such things like they did in Texas? I mean, is that
how much money do they get? How much money do they get? What sort of fraud is involved in that? People using this as a way to, exploit women and profit.
Yeah, and even the thought of providing health care. They didn't even want to provide health care. So you're going to force a woman to have a baby. You don't even want to provide health care to women who don't have health care.
Pregnancy is expensive.
Expensive.
Yes.
Yeah. So what's going to happen with that? So do you expect this woman to go have this baby and then just leave it out? Just got to leave the woman and the child to just die on their own? Because obviously these people do not believe it. They really are not true pro-life people. They don't, because they don't give a shit about people. The shit about these babies once they are out of the womb, and they don't care about people. So it's like, well, so what's going to happen with that? What about healthcare? So you're going to expand healthcare, Medicare for all,
Childcare.
And can I say too, that is such a pet peeve of mine. The most pro-life thing you can be is pro-choice. There's no such thing as they're not pro-life, they're anti-choice.
Right.
If you are somebody that is, and that is okay. Like if you have a religious conviction and you are completely anti-abortion, then you better get out there and work for every Democratic candidate, because again, that is how fewer abortions occur. And it really grinds my gears that we don't talk about that enough, right? That there is space to take the moral high ground here if that is where you are. And I know a lot of women are there, and that's okay, and I just want to point that out too. Like if you are very interested, if you are this is your wake-up call, if you are somebody that considers himself pro-life, you are pro-choice. It's just by default.
And something that I wanted to add is, I think people are thinking of traditional abortions. They're not thinking of ectopic pregnancies, which were, if there is a complete ban, at certain points. They're not thinking of, I had a friend who I don't think she realizes that she had an abortion because she was pregnant with twins and one was not viable. And at around 16 weeks, she needed to have a selective reduction in order to save the life of the other fetus. And knowing her and knowing the way she votes, I don't think she views that as abortion care. I think she just thinks it's something that happened. And I think in some scenarios, a mother would be forced to carry until term, and whatever happens, happens. And it might not have been safe for her.
Rhonda, that
Or
makes
safe for her, the other child.
Right.
So that makes me think about, and I agree with you. I think a lot of people have in their mind like what an abortion is, and if you need one, what that situation is. I know that when we had an issue in our city with them trying to pass an abortion ban, women after women stood up and shared their abortion story, and the diversity in their stories, how it happened, why they made their decision, what they were facing. They were all completely different. I mean, there's just, there is not one story. There are just, every person is an individual with something else that has happened. And so trying to mandate this is just, beside the issues with like who's going to childcare and healthcare and everything else that's wrapped up in it. But I think that is a good point, that I think a lot of people who are opposing this or who are claiming to be pro-life just really have this vision of what happens in abortion cases. And it's just, that's not reality.
Yeah. Right.
And what about women who die in childbirth too? And that affects women of color much more than white women. I mean, many of us are mothers. I think some of us have had experiences I had where I had massive hemorrhaging after my second daughter, and they didn't believe me. And I remember laying there thinking I might die because doctors won't listen to me. But I'm coming from a place of privilege where eventually they did listen to me, and I'm here today, thankfully. But not everyone has that. Like you were saying, not everyone has health care. You can have a perfectly healthy pregnancy and still lose your life in labor in this country, much more so than you will in other countries. And people aren't thinking about that. Like, we don't think about the woman's life and how that matters. So that's another issue I have with the term pro-life, is that we matter. Women's lives matter. Oh, just makes so
right. And now your doctor is going to have to consider the consequences, not necessarily what's best for your health, right? Yeah. The consequences for their actions.
So the thing about sharing our stories is that it just shows, I mean, even among this small group of women, like I didn't know all of the experiences that all of you have shared today, and we know each other pretty well. This opportunity to share our stories shows just the diversity of experiences of women out there, and the idea that politicians are in a better position to make a decision for women in all the various situations, impossible situations could be in, that they're in a better situation than the woman and her doctor and the people she loves and who support her to make that decision. To me, it brings that home. It also brings home for me the fact that we are stronger together. We carry this burden together by sharing our stories and being willing to channel the feelings that come out of these stories, which I think the most common feeling at this point now is that rage. But what do we do with it? And women are actually really good at this. We don't tend to just like blow off the steam and have it be, unproductive.
Mm-hmm.
We know how to channel our rage into something concrete, specific. We know how to own our power together, that we see the strength in doing so collectively, that it's not about the credit, that it is about the outcome, that this is about, the future more than anything else. And what, the world that we are looking at, living in, is right here before us. And so we have such an opportunity just among the 6 of us here, and then just the exponential circles going out. Each one of us has so much power there, and every single person watching here. And so please let this be an invitation to channel your rage together with us. This is a sisterhood. It always has been at Red, Wine, and Blue. It's about so much more than politics. I mean, or it is politics. Politics is our lives, And so
to be a woman is to be political. I mean, that's just what it is.
I like that. To be a woman is to be political. Oh man.
I mean, if they're literally legislating our body, look at what just happened.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I want to say too, like, what a privilege it is to be able to take action. I was trying to find like where my gratitude lay, like where that place was in me, because there was so much rage and it was dark, right? But I'm so grateful to be able to work at Red, Wine, and Blue, to be able to work with the different women, the different volunteers, because I know that we're actually in the fight and we're doing something back. You know what I mean? And to be able to do that, that gave me a pep in my step this morning. It's like, yes, it's really bad, but you know what? I get to wake up and do something about it. And I just really feel that privilege today.
Yeah.
And I think if your phone was blowing up like mine was last night with all of your friends who did not recognize this was going to happen, you need to invite them to become part of the sisterhood, because they need a place to feel like people are listening to them and where they can learn to take action and do something about this. Because I've always found, no matter what the issue is, when I'm doing something, I feel like I'm trying to make a difference. It is better than sitting there and just tweeting it to the universe or raging on your phone. Like you need to do something. So I know I had people reaching out to me last night that, I'm going to be talking to them. We're going to be having conversations.
And probably people you haven't heard from in a while, who
100%.
Don't pay attention. Maybe they hadn't paid attention since the 2020 election. And notice too, that this is not just, you're going to be hearing from people who aren't just, the people who are always active, or, people who are necessarily Democrats or identify as liberal people. Oh my Lord, it's so much bigger than that.
Yeah, your Facebook post about this, you should be talking to everybody on there, because I'm sure there are people, like Katie said, you haven't talked to in a while, but they need to, you need to know to direct them.
Absolutely. It's time to get loud.
Time to get loud. Okay, ladies. Shall we go do that now? Now?
Let's go get loud. Again, if you haven't, redwine.blue, make sure you're signing up for updates. There's going to be so much more to come on this, and so much more as we head towards the midterms. All right. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.